Hello guys, welcome to this update and upgrade class organized by University of Pattern Drafting. So this is the fourth part of our pattern drafting video, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to draft the pattern for the back, both the corset part and then the skirt part of the back of this dress. So here is the skirt pattern for the back, and notice that it is folded into two. I have two pieces of this because you have to draft both the left part of the back and then the right side separately. So I have gone ahead to include 2 inches zip allowance. This is what you can see me ruling out, and notice my pattern is short because I just didn't want to waste pattern paper. So you can make it as long as it actually should, as long as the front is. And then before I started drawing, I left 3 inches allowance at the top of the paper. So this is actually where I'm writing now, is actually where the natural waistline should actually start. This is where the original skirt pattern should actually start. I just left 3 inches on top. Do you understand? And then I've gone ahead to cut out my back pattern and all that. Notice I mentioned that it's not as long as the front pattern, just because I didn't want to waste pattern paper, but you can make yours as long as it should be so that I don't get confused. And I'm going ahead to just notch the zip part so that I do not get confused. So I'm going to transcribe this same measurement onto the other side. Do you understand? So the same 2 inches zipper allowance, and then also 3 inches allowance at the top of the paper. So this is the 3 inches. Can you see that? So this is actually the natural waistline. This is where the original skirt pattern should actually start from. So this is my front pattern. Remember that we've already achieved the asymmetrical waistline in front. So now we're trying to achieve that at the back, so that at the sides and at the zip area, everything just aligns properly. So this is my front pattern. And so I'm just marking this 19 inches because the length of my back pattern is, this one I cut is actually 19 inches. Do you understand? I should have actually made it longer, but I just don't want to waste my pattern paper. So I just want to know how short it should actually be, so that when I'm arranging it, I don't get confused. So this is how it actually should be, because my back pattern, this length is 17 inches. When I'm cutting on my fabric, I'm going to actually make it the same length, but I just did this to save pattern paper. So this is my back pattern. Also remember that I included 1 inch seam allowance on the front pattern, and so it's also included on the back pattern. Do you understand? So I've placed it on the 1 inch seam allowance, just as it would be when I sew. Do you understand? So you can see the asymmetry in front, and then you can see that if we leave the back pattern the way it is, it wouldn't align properly. So this is why we have to work on this back pattern. So remember that for me, for my front pattern, I started my asymmetrical waistline at 1.5 inches above the natural waistline, and then I dropped it, and then at this other shorter side it is 2 inches below the natural waistline. Do you understand? And remember that on the back pattern we left 3 inches instead of 1.5. So now I'm going to reduce it back to that 1.5. I hope this is clear. So it was 1.5 we used in front, so I'm going to ensure that we have that same 1.5 at the back. Do you get? So everything just rhymes. So this is 1.5, and so I'm going to do that on the left side. Do you understand? So watch how I placed it. The side seams of both front and back align. Do you understand? So the side seams of both front and back align. So don't go and place the zip area on top of this side pattern. Do you understand? Ensure that it's placed properly the way you place it when if you were going to be sewing these papers together. So the same 1.5, and I'm just going to rule out that line, and then I'll crop it off. Do you get, so it doesn't get confusing for me. But if you use 2 inches above your natural waistline, then ensure that you're doing 2 inches. Do you understand? If you did 3 inches above your natural waistline, then do you understand? You don't have to cut it. So this is me just cutting this out. So can you see? I'm just trying to align the 1 inch seam allowance. Do you understand? So this is actually how it is supposed to be. So this is actually what it is supposed to be. So you can see the center front of my back, of my front, sorry. This is the center front of my front, and I've aligned it with my, I knew there was something funny about this. So this is actually how it's supposed to be, not the original way I placed it. So this is how it's supposed to be. So you can see the 19 inches length, that line I drew on the front pattern. So can you see that? You can see that everything is on that same 19 inches level. Do you get? So that's what we'll be using as the marker. Since I didn't make it as, if I made it as long as it should actually be, then I'll have had to be stressing about this. So this is align the center front. Remember, this is the middle corset pattern panel. So can you see 2A, 2B? So this is the essence of the labeling. So that in all of this, in trying to place each and align it, nothing would be confusing. So this is 3B. Can you see that? Everything is sitting properly. Remember that on that 3B, when you're cutting out that 3B, you have to include, so you'd have to include the 1 inch seam allowance that is on the skirt pattern. Do you understand? So this is 3A. So 3A has that 1 inch seam allowance. So I think I'll just fold it in so it doesn't get confusing. 3B doesn't have, but 3A has. So I'll just bend that in so that you don't get confused. But that's the 1 inch seam allowance. You can see it sort of like aligns with the 1 inch on the skirt pattern. Do you understand? So I'm just folding it in so it doesn't get confusing. So this is what it looks like. Can you see that? Ensure that all the underbust, the lines, can you see? That's the essence of moving the lines. See the underbust lines. Can you see everything just aligns? Do you understand? So this is what it says. So we're going to now use a diagonal line to connect like that. So this is 5A. So can you see that, guys? So obviously this is a corset pattern. It's not going to get the zip area. Do you understand? Because we've made room for lacing. That's why you can see this plenty space on the skirt pattern between the zip and where the corset stops. The zip allowance and where the corset stops. Do you understand? Because we created allowance for that lacing. Do you understand? So when you pull, you know, it can sort of like come together. Just allowance. Because if it was, you should understand this by now. If you attended the free class. This is 5B. So you can see that in placing them, ensure that everything aligns. So you can see the disparity here. You can already see the disparity. So now we're going to use a diagonal line to connect the front and the back. Essentially, we're going to just use a diagonal. It's basically what we did in front, but you have to pay close attention to this so that you don't make any mistake. You can use a paper tape to tape your corset part to the lower part. Remember that we've cut out the dart, so they should actually come together. So this is me just marking out the original one in seam allowance. Can you see that? So that's it's just everything is just clearer. So do that on the other side too. So now use a diagonal line to connect the side of the front to the zip area of the back. This is just really what it is. Do you understand? Side of the front to the zip area of the back. And then create the allowances for the dots. Can you see that, guys? So that at the side everything just rhymes and it matches properly. Do you get? Do the same for the other side. Remember, the other side is higher, so the diagonal line is going to be in a different direction. Do you get? This is why we place the pattern completely open. Do you understand? So if you don't have a wide table, you can do this on the floor. So this is what we have, and then we're also going to go ahead and separate, roll the dot lines. So I hope this has been really clear. And then also in cutting your pattern, label the skirt patterns. Ensure that when you're placing it on fabric, now we're not placing anything on the fold. Do you understand? Everything is going to be cut one. So notice how I'm going to be cutting this. And when you're placing on your pattern, ensure that this place that I wrote top on is facing the top of the fabric. Do you understand? Is directly on top of the fabric. Do you understand? So I hope when I'm cutting it on fabric, I would explain further. So this is what it actually looks like. So this is 4 and this is 5. 5 has that extension. Do you understand? So on panel 3A and 4A, there has to be 1 inch allowance. Do you understand? So that it aligns with the skirt pattern. And then this is what this other one looks like. So this is what the other one looks like, and I hope this is really clear. I hope this is really clear. If you have any questions, you can actually drop that on the group so that when I respond, every other person can benefit from it. So this is what it looks like. And in cutting the patterns, all of these ones, all the papers that have the portions of papers that have the inscriptions, portion of paper that you drew on, is what should face up. Your fabric should face up, and then these portions of the paper should face up. So thanks for watching.